This is the All-Star Networking Show with your host, Cathy Paper.
Welcome to the All-Star Networking Show. I am so excited for today's guest that literally I wanted to stop the pre-show conversation because we're going to have so much to talk about that I can tell he's going to be a repeat guest on the All-Star Networking Show. So please join Robbie Samuels here today. He's going to say hello and tell us a bit about him, and then we are going to rock and roll today.
Hey, everybody. I'm a multi-passionate entrepreneur. I'm best known for producing virtual events that are highly engaging and transformative. And I also work with entrepreneurs around how to leverage their own network to get great results.
No, and Robbie, you've got so many different things that literally on my little show notes here, I'm not sure where to start other than what I do want to start with is how can we make this podcast more engaging for people that are listening, because there are so many podcasts to choose from and you are such a networking goldmine. I want to know, do I ring a bell every 3 minutes, or what can I do right here and now to just jazz everybody up to say this is going to be the best 30 minutes of your life?
Well, I think what we can do is we can promise them great stories and actionable takeaways. That is something I'm really keen on. I once had someone describe the way I present as big little ideas. So they're really big ideas, but little in the sense that they're bite-sized enough that you can go and try them out. And that is true for whatever I'm speaking on. But the thing in that moment, it was actually one of my best networking tips, which is something called croissants versus bagels. And I think we've all had the experience of going into an in-person event back when we didn't have to actually even call them in-person events. Remember, Paper, we used to just say, I went to an event. You'd go into an event and people will be standing there in those tight clusters, those shoulder-to-shoulder huddles that are impossible to break into. Okay, those are the bagels. But if one person in the circle shifts their body language to make space for others to join, now you have a croissant. And it is important when you're heading out of your house to an event to remember that events are about content and connection, which, by the way, side note, is true also for virtual events. But if you're going to leave your house and make the effort to travel somewhere, you should know why you're going. And having that sort of reminder for your physical stance, it reminds you that you're not there to hang out with your besties. You're not there to hide in the corner. Right? You're there to engage. So having an open body language makes it possible for that to happen. But it also means you can walk in a room and look for those natural openings rather than trying to break in, which is so awkward when we're trying, and you're like, don't even know what they're laughing about. Just kind of open stance. But I've got lots of tips. My first book is about, it's called actually Croissants versus Bagels, Strategic, Effective, Inclusive Networking at Conferences. And when I was writing the book, I was struggling with sort of how to break up the sections. And everyone said, well, wouldn't it be before, during, and after the event? And I was like, well, I mean, follow-up is something you have to plan before so you know who you're looking to meet, and maybe even draft your email that you would send after. You would draft it so you have it already written out. And then during the event, you want to keep track of the cards, the people that are higher priority. If you're here in the Western countries, you can turn the corner of those cards without offending anyone. And that way, when you drop the pile on your desk, when you get back home, those cards pop out at you. And then you want to have already scheduled after the event time to actually send those follow-up messages. And if you trace that line through, you're just going to be so much more likely to follow up rather than just like collect a bunch of business cards that don't return to relationships. So relationships happen when one of you decides to reach out again and schedule another conversation. So here we've already, will we 3-4 minutes in? There you go. That's the kind of show we're going to have, Paper.
Yeah, but this is already I mean, hold on, listeners, because I'm still back on bagels versus croissants, and I want to run right out to the store and I can tell you where the best croissants are in town and where the best bagels are. But we can debate that later. But let's just break apart what you said, because it's so powerful about if I'm going to an event and first I have to know why I'm going, right? why I'm going to that event. But describe for me a little bit about that bagel situation or what I'm looking for. Because right when you took me back to the event, the pandemic, I would say changed my comfort level of walking into a big room. I know when I go there, I have to take a bigger deep breath. I prepare myself a little bit more. I have to give myself a little more self-talk. How do you guide somebody through that? Am I looking for the bagels and croissants, or break
Sure.
it apart for me a little bit?
All right.
Because of course I did go to, am I having a chocolate croissant or a cherry croissant? Like I kind of went a few other places and
All
I was like,
right. All
okay, hyper
right.
focused.
Well, I always joke, the best croissants are, Montreal, right? The best bagels in New York kind of thing. But it's not about the food, it's about the physicality of the space. So here's what I do when I'm getting ready to go to an event is I do write, like, particularly if it's a new event and it's something I've never been in, I do sit down and I jot down to myself a little bit of like what I'm going there for, which becomes the basis of the follow-up email. So I wear a lot of different hats, and I have to figure out which one do I want to start with? What's the one I'm presenting with as I walk in? And that has to do with who's going to be in the space. So a little bit of this pre-work will really help. So can you find a list of your guests, or can you see pictures of past attendees to get a little bit of an idea? Look at the exhibitors, the sponsors, the presenters to get a sense of who's attracted in. If you're really unclear, you could always contact the organizers, ask a couple questions, but know why you're going before you just like automatically say, okay, fine, I'm going to do this. A lot of people just manage the logistics of getting to an event. They book all their travel and they pay for the conference ticket, but they don't really arrive. Like they get there, but they're still thinking about all the emails in their inbox from work, and they're thinking about things they left at home undone. So extroverts will wing it. I am an outgoing extrovert and I just am like around people, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't mean I'm going to be effective though, right? Being able to air kiss my way through a crowd does not mean I'm being effective. And a lot of the people I tend to work with are more introverted or they're more shy, sometimes both. And all that pre-planning, A, makes them more confident, and it also makes them more effective because you don't have, like, I go to a local meeting, a chapter meeting or something, or a chamber meeting. I'm going to be there for the full 3 hours and probably stay after to pack up all the chairs. Like I've stacked chairs of every kind, right? I don't know how to go home. There's still people.
Right.
Introverts, that sounds awful. But I'm telling the introverts that this pre-planning, you can be there for 1 hour, meet the people you need to meet, go home, and then build one-to-one relationships from that point forward. So part of the pre-planning is just so important. But the bagels versus croissants piece is physically be approachable and look for the people who are approachable. So if you are a little bit shy, you might have a tendency to become a wallflower at events. Well, unfortunately, the people most likely to meet you are other wallflowers and they don't know anyone. And that's going to be maybe a great conversation or maybe not. But at the end of that conversation, neither one of you can easily introduce the other person to someone in the room. So my recommendation is that you try to stay in the middle of the room. Ideally, get in line for food or for a drink or to drop off your coat at coat check. And while you're in line, try to strike up a conversation with the other people who are in line with you. Here's something to note. People who arrive 6 people deep with all their besties rarely get in line together. So while it might be uncomfortable for you to walk up to these 6 people who are in a tight conversation, one of them will peel off to go get a drink, and then you will happen to be next to them at the bar, and you can ask them what's that drink they just ordered, or can you read the specials over? I can't see the specials list, or what do you think that appetizer is that just went by? And you could just start a nice conversation. Keep it upbeat, keep it positive. Do not take this time to complain about there not being enough vegan options, which is totally
Yes, yes,
legit,
yes, yes,
but
yes.
don't, like, who knows, they might be the person who can make that change in the future, so don't start negative. But like that's how you get in. Now if you're circling a networking event and people are standing in those tight clusters, what you want to do is look for the openings. So that's the croissants. Some people will more naturally stand open, and if you're in one of those circles, you're in a bagel, pay attention to the people who are circling around and open your body language. So in my TEDx, I actually physically demonstrate how people should stand. And I even brought people on stage with me to demonstrate what this looks like. But essentially, your feet are shoulder width apart. You put one leg half a step back and turn it out a little bit. So if you take your right leg back, it's going to turn slightly to 2 o'clock. If you were to hold your feet together again and then put your left foot back, your left foot would turn slightly to 10 o'clock. This is not first position ballet. It should not be extreme. It should not hurt you. In fact, it should make you more stable than you would be standing feet shoulder width apart. That's it. That's the whole stance. And then you've opened up your body language. Even if I'm talking to someone one-on-one, so paper, if you and I were having a conversation, I could be standing straight, feet straight together facing you, or I could have this bit of an open body language and now someone could join us. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to meet people.
So of course I have a couple of thoughts for you as you're talking about this open stance and the move that you just described. One, the reference to Legally Blonde and where she does the bend and snap. You have got to trademark this or have it be, I want to watch your TEDx, and we'll put that link in the show notes, because I know exactly what happens when people don't open is nobody comes in. And sometimes the people that are inside the bagel, they're bored or they check out or they don't know how to leave. I'm sure you cover a lot of those details, but I got to reinforce what you said of getting in the line. Because if somebody is a new networker going to that event and they don't know where to start, I love that you just explained so clearly how they get in the line and start a conversation about something upbeat, positive, that normally I bet the person that's talking to them, their next question is, so what do you do? Or why are you here? Right? Or mostly we're just trying to get a little momentum. So those are great ideas in there. You said stay in the middle of the room. Do you have any thoughts about how do people know when to exit or when to leave, or
Sure. You want to know my exit strategies?
well, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah. No, I can.
maybe I'm diving too soon into it.
No, I'll share it because I really think it's important for people to know they can get out if I'm telling them how to get in. Because I feel like some people are worried about how to get in, but I feel like more people are nervous they're going to get stuck. So I've asked this question. I had a training, a presentation, a speech, a talk that I did for, I don't know, 10 plus years before the pandemic, called Art of the Schmooze. And I would ask in that audience every time, raise your hand if you're worried about getting into conversations, raise your hand if you're worried about getting stuck in conversations. And I would say this is stuck in conversations was usually more hands. Okay, here's the thing about how to exit gracefully. You have to exit while there's still a group. So if there's 5 of you and you decide to go, you're not going to stop the conversation to shake hands with each person and tell them why you're leaving and then go. You're going to just kind of mumble your way out. Hey, I'm going to go mumble, mumble, mumble. And you walk away, right? I hear the Peanuts like mom in my head when right? That's it. Now, when there's only 3 people, you have to make a decision. 1, pay attention to the fact that there's now only 3. Either you're going to bring someone else in by having open body language and grabbing someone as they come by and be like, oh, come on. Or you're going to go, or you're going to hesitate, and then someone else is going to go. And now there's 2 of you. So it's much more involved to exit gracefully when there's only 2 people. When there's 3, 4, 5 people, smooth. You just kind of go, hey, and no one really is listening or caring.
Right.
Like now, if you mention, for instance, I'm going to go to the bathroom, walk in that direction. If you say I'm going to go to the bar, walk in that direction. Like, don't immediately get caught out that you went in the wrong direction. Don't walk into a corner accidentally and get stuck there. And have some like extroverted person who talks their hands, that's me, stand in front of you, blocking your egress. So don't do that. So have a plan for where you're going to go, but also be mindful. Now there's only 3. And when there's only 2 people, it depends on whether you're newer to the space or they are. And this is why it's helpful to not be 2 newbies. If you're 2 first timers who are a little shy, socially awkward, just anxious about this space, it's a lot harder. And if you're in that setting, and I've had this happen one time when I was new and I didn't know anyone, I said to the person, "Oh, great. It was nice meeting you. I've got to use the restroom." And they said, "That sounds like a great idea." And then followed me. It's like,
In the
it's like I can't shake you. So, okay, if there's two people, if you know some people, then you get to be a great host and say, "Hey, it's lovely chatting with you. I know some people here. I've been coming here for a while. Like who are you trying to meet? Like, is there someone in particular or a kind of person? Maybe I can help make an introduction for you." And then they'll probably say, "Oh, actually, I was hoping to meet these kinds of people." And you're like, there, I don't see anyone here right now, but let me introduce you to the organizer because they'll probably know. Or you can say, "Oh, I know, so who you should meet. They're not here, but let me do a quick introduction." Now, I did this years ago, was finding my way through an event, and the guy said, "I know who you need to meet," and he sent a tweet. This is back when we all said hello to each other on Twitter. And the woman and I that he sent me an introduction, we chatted on Twitter for like months, maybe like 8 months on and off. I would see her stuff. We would chat with each other. And one day I walk into an event. She's behind the desk handing out the name tags. As she goes to hand me a tag, she realizes it's my name. She runs around and gives me a hug. I mean, that's how we
uh,
merge the like digital and the in person. Um, but it's like you're helping end the conversation gracefully while helping this other person. And if you are not the person who knows many people in the room, if you're not able to really have that co-host mentality, then you would say, "It was really lovely chatting with you. I'm wondering if you could help me out. I am looking to meet more people like blank. Do you happen to know anyone?" And you just sort of say it. You say, "This has been great. I love it. Here's how you can help me out." And again, that person will either have a direct connection and walk you over to, maybe they'll offer to introduce you to somebody else, whatever it is. But at least you're trying. And if you follow this, you will leapfrog your way to the right kind of people in a busy room. So I once did this in a big event, and I had to ask like the first four people to kind of leapfrog me till I got to like the smaller identity that I was looking for. I had to start broad and then keep narrowing it down. And that's how I made that great connection on Twitter. I mean, we're going back like 15 years now, but those are my tips for leaving. And the last thing I'll say, Paper, is grip, grin, and go. So
oh,
if it's
wait,
just time,
hold on. I got to write that one down
I'm
because
gonna write it down.
I'm still on the being a great host, Robbie, because for anybody listening, here's a thing to do is before you can figure out how you can be a great host, look around the room. You can see the people who are great hosts.
Mhm.
At least for me, I can spy people in a room of like, oh, that person is a connector or they're a gracious person. And then I model a little bit of my style after, oh, that's the kind of host or hostess I want to be. So love that. Now let's talk deep breath. Let's talk about grip, grin, and what was the third G?
Go. And by the way, the last G is the one that everyone forgets. So grip is the handshake. So this is when it's two people and they can't help you and you can't help them. Right? It's just time to go. So the handshake is you shake their hands because that is a way we here in Western culture signal the end of a conversation and also the start. It's a bookend experience. The grin is you say something nice. "It's been a pleasure meeting with you. I'm so glad to see you here. What a fun conversation." Whatever it is. It's the grin is the nice thing you say, because if you don't do the nice thing, if you just shake hands and walk away, it feels super awkward and abrupt to the person
Or
who's behind
I
you.
shouldn't say out loud to them what I'm thinking is I shake their hand and go, okay, I have to go somewhere because you're boring and you're not going to give me what I want. I can't say that to
Right. You
them.
can't say that. You got to say something like, "Thanks for chatting with me." It could be as simple as it is. The last G is go. Now, here's how we interrupt this. Okay. The handshake is a social cue, but social cues can be broken. If you shake someone's hand and you say the nicety, and then you say, "Oh, wait, I wanted to ask you about," you could basically, you interrupt your exit to ask them something else. You will never again be able to use the handshake with that person to exit because you've just ignored the handshake. And now you're going to be in this awkward thing where it's going to be like, "Well, how do I know when to go? Because they're not leaving and I'm not leaving." So if you could always circle back to that person to talk to them again, you can reach out to them after. But if you're going to shake hands, you've made the decision to leave the conversation, you've got to do all three things in sequence and fairly quickly. Grip, handshake, grin, say the nice thing, go. Walk away. And then if you want to talk to them again, you always can. Now, here's the cool thing. You could say very little in a conversation. You could really just be the kind of person who asks good questions, follows up, shows interest, nods, murmurs, says very little about yourself. And then you grip, grin, and go. And later you see that person who was talking about something you didn't care a whit about, and they are standing next to the person you wanted to meet. As you approach them, the person you've been talking to, who you didn't really feel a connection with, is going to physically open their body language and wave you over and want to introduce you to their friend, which is the person you'd like to meet. And they'll say, "Oh my gosh, we had the most fascinating conversation. Can you tell them a little bit about you?" Because they'll realize they felt it was fascinating because they got to do all the talking.
Right.
And you made them feel fascinating. But now you're being introduced with a lot of high energy to the person you really want to be meeting. And that's how you can always leave a conversation on a high note. Even if you're having an amazing conversation, have a moment where you're like, I'm going to go now, mentally be thinking, I'm going to go now, leave it on a high note, leave them wanting to talk to me further, whether that will be in the same event or following the event, or they'll see you and want to wave you over to have a conversation with their colleague. Leave with them wanting more and use grip, grin, and go to head out.
Okay. I think I need to take some of your workshops. I'm just going to say this up. I don't know, Robbie, if I've ever shaken anyone's hand and left the circle. Like,
Well, not a circle. This is only for one-on-one. If
this
it's a
is
circle,
one-on-ones.
yeah, if it's a circle, you're not going to interrupt the circle to shake everyone's hands. That would be weird, right? You wouldn't do that. If it's a
Okay.
circle, if it's 3, 4, 5 people, you just kind of go, you might tap the person next to you, like, and you just like,
Okay.
you just kind of point your way out. If it's one-on-one and they can't introduce you to anyone and you're not introducing them to anyone and you're still standing there, that's when you do grip, grin, and go.
Got it. Okay, I still am not sure. I'm gonna have to pay attention to myself of how I exit a conversation. I'm a little concerned I might be an abrupt leaver. Uh, and or do you have any tips for somebody like that? This part makes me uncomfortable of how do I end? I might hang around either too long, or sometimes in my head is running, I don't want to appear superficial, or I mean, there's a lot of noise in my head when I'm networking sometimes, but I'm just thinking about, do I leave a conversation nicely? And for any listeners that know me, you can tell me, because I bet, I've fouled out of basketball games. I've been kicked out of a rugby game. Like, I got a lot of things that come across as aggressive, but are not, I'm a kind person, I think, but I'm wondering, do I know how to leave a conversation? I'm
So it's
not.
the grin. So I think that your homework would be to focus on the middle part. So, whether it's a handshake or some other signal, every culture has some kind of social cue that you're going to use. And if you're maybe not in a business setting, maybe it won't be a handshake, but there's something you do to sort of initiate, I'm heading out. And then you've got to fill in. I was at a alumni event, and we were meeting the new class of people going through a leadership program. And I spotted someone who was an incoming leader. And I was pretty happy I was like, wow, it's cool that you're here. And as he left, he just said, thanks, I'm gonna get a drink. And he walked away. And, I was stunned. I had that moment of like, why did that feel awful? Like that felt so wrong. And I
Yeah.
realized he could have said like, thanks, like it was great seeing you here too. Or thanks, I'm really excited about the program. I'm gonna go get a drink. Like he just needed to a little social lubricant to like
Yeah.
smooth the exit out and not be so like, thanks, I'm gonna get a drink. Like he just walked away, and I thought we were having a nice conversation, right? So
Right.
I was left me being like, by the way, I had opportunities to see him again in other settings, and I would avoid having any kind of social chat with him because I didn't want to have that experience again. So that's another thing, is like the extra effort will also leave people wanting to talk to you again. And when you're not doing it, That's why people turn their back on you when you're trying to break into these bagels. If everyone goes, oh yeah, no, 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 and they turn their back and they tell their friends to turn their back, that means you've got to look at how you've been showing up.
Yeah. And again, I'm probably not terrible. If anything, I might do the when I'm one-on-one with somebody, I will say, hey, come on, let's go over here. I kind of do a like, hey, come with me.
Sure.
This would be fun, but I'm gonna work on I love the grip again. Now, here's a part for ladies networking, and maybe men carry purses too, but I have found at networking events I forget to sort of have a strategy of I need my hands free to be able to do stuff.
Hmm.
So again, that's why maybe I haven't done a lot of handshaking, but I know for me, I had to learn years ago, like tuck a couple cards in my pocket or have my phone and then a drink. I try not to carry too much stuff because I'm a bumbler
Yeah.
with things. I've dumped plates of food. I've had all the networking mishaps. And obviously,
Well,
comedied my way through them, but
you're bringing up a good point, which is one of my earliest blog posts and earliest podcast episodes was titled "When Will Women Win the Right to Pockets?" So women won the right to vote back in 1919. It went into effect in 1920. When are they going to get pockets? And these days, if there are pockets, sometimes they're the size of like a chapstick. Our phones are getting bigger. The pockets are not. My 3-year-old years ago had bigger pockets than my wife's outfit, and my 3-year-old did not need to carry anything. So, of course, if you pay attention to this and you look for it, there are now designers that are finally starting to put some pockets, some real pockets, some useful pockets. But here's how you might work around that. Have a smaller bag, like not the huge bag that you put everything in for your commute,
right.
but a smaller bag that you might carry with you for these kinds of situations. You can also plan ahead by wearing a jacket or a sweater that has some pockets. Another thing, a tip I've gotten is you take a hairband or an elastic band and you put your cards and the cards you're receiving all stacked together. The cards you're receiving go on the bottom so you don't accidentally hand out someone else's card, which someone did to me. That's where turning the card corner for the ones you want to keep an eye on after matters because you're going to put them all together and there's no differentiation. And sometimes when you join those bagels, um, someone's like, oh, hey, let's all exchange cards. And then suddenly you're part of like a poker game and everyone's like, oh, and it's like those cards probably have less meaning to you than when you're having a one-on-one conversation for 10 minutes with someone and you're like, oh, I want to follow up with that person. So the corner is one way. And then of course a pen, if you have one handy, to jot down a little note about what you talked about and all that. And at that night, make sure you jot a little note in the card just so that you don't lose track of where these cards are from when they end up in your desk. There's a whole thing about what do we do with them. But
Yes.
so I think planning ahead and also if you have the opportunity to be an event organizer, please do not do away with name tag holders that have pockets. Now, the very simple ones have the plastic thing, and the nicer ones have canvas with pockets. But lately, I've been seeing more organizations are moving to like a laminate card, and there's no pocket, and they're forgetting that anyone showing up to the event who was expecting to put their cards and the cards they receive in the back of the name tag holder, like that's now no longer a possibility. So if you have the means to impress upon people the need to have that feature built in, it will help, particularly if it's like a bunch of guys on a committee and they have some women coming to the event. So I think planning ahead is key. And one of the things I learned, whether I was bowling or networking, is to keep my right hand free. So this is not the hand I want to be eating greasy things with if I'm bowling, because that's not going to be good.
Right.
Similarly, holding my drink, a cold beverage in my right hand, and then shifting it over and then immediately shaking someone's hand. Nobody wants to shake that hand that feels cold and clammy. So holding your beverages in your left hand, if they might, change the temperature of your hand. If you cannot juggle eating some food and drinking, don't do them together. Like come having already eaten some food so you don't feel the need to nosh. Sit down at a table to eat or stand at one of those high top tables to eat. It's like just set yourself up for success and make sure that if you do get up and go over to like a buffet line or something, you do have your cards with you. They shouldn't be buried in the bag that you took that is sitting the floor under your chair, because then I had one person at the end of a coffee chat. She would hold this and she started digging through her bag to like hand me various things. And then she finally found one of her cards
Oh,
wrinkled and the makeup smears. She's like, here. And I was like,
right.
this is gonna be really memorable for all the wrong reasons.
Right, exactly. You're going to be one of my examples.
Yeah,
You're going to
so
be one of my
having
examples of
a
what not
business
to
card
do.
holder is really key, to keep them nice. I also learned how to take cards out with my right hand out of my back right pocket, flip open the thing and take a card out with one hand. It feels like a magic trick, but it's just a little bit of
Yes.
practice. Having cards near the hand you're going to keep free. So don't keep your cards in your back left pocket, because your right hand's going to be the one that you want free to. So it's just, this is a little advanced planning. I break it down because it's not intuitive. These cultural cues are not something we're taught, and you don't need to say the entire time to really have a good impact. So I'm a big fan of doing some prep ahead of time, and then you can have great results.
Yes, you're an all-star. I'm telling you, I've taken 2 pages of notes right here between the croissant and bagels and my stance move, and then grip, grin, and go. I really like that. I want to use again. Will you come back on again?
I
Can you
love
come
it.
again? But before we wrap up, I do want to talk a bit about the your business book publishing, because you've got some things going on right now that I think some of our listeners are either authors or know people that are authors, since 1 in 8 people wants to write a book. And writing a book is a great way to position yourself as a thought leader. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing there, and then we'll wrap on one final tip.
I am a award-winning 3-time indie author, and my claim to fame is that all 3 of my books have received over 200 Amazon reviews, and I um, build big launch teams filled with likely prospects and referral partners to achieve that. So for the last 7 years on and off, I have helped other people do that. Then I became known as the Zoom guy. So then I started also offering virtual launch parties, because I can design and MC a virtual launch party that leads the participants to an offer that comes after the book. Last October, my mentor asked why I wasn't a book launch coach, for like maybe the 3rd or 4th time in 7 years. So I decided I would do it only if I can build a referral network so I could meet people who already have a manuscript that's ready to go to the editor. And the result, because I don't do things small paper, is that I ended up with the Biz Book Publishing Hub, which has over 50 experts ready to guide entrepreneurs through writing, editing, publishing, and marketing a business book. It's a free resource. It's available at bizbookpublishinghub.com, and we host networking events for free 6 times a year for writers and authors. And it is really about just helping people wherever you are, whether you're still thinking about writing a book or you're thinking about ways to market a book you've had out for a little while. My focus is helping people build profitable launches or relaunches that activate, engage, and wake up their own network to lead to new revenue opportunities, which is the kind of success you can take to the bank. And twice a year, I also organize a Kindle cross promotion sales campaign around Amazon Prime Day and Black Friday, where I get, well, this time nearly 80 books together. We all lower our Kindle price to 99 cents and cross promote. So I've this really stepped up in the last year, doing a lot more activity to support anyone who wants to become an author. If you're working in a company, not an entrepreneur, and you still think this sounds great, a lot of these resources will still apply to you. It's not exclusively for authors who own businesses, but that's like a niche within the world of nonfiction that I wanted to make sure we were addressing, because I didn't see anyone else doing it. So that's what I
That's
put together.
awesome. Okay, so I'm going to go to bizbookpublishinghub.com.
Hmm.
And I love that you have over 200 Amazon reviews. One of the things I learned, and I'm going to do this because I'm not sure which of your books I'm going to order first, but I'm for sure ordering. Is it true that if you do a video Amazon review, it's better for the author?
Well, it's better for you. And most people don't think to ask this question, but any review with a photo or a video, there is going to be that media will show at the top of the review section. And so if you, let's say, read my first book, which is about networking, but you wanted to position yourself as a fellow expert or authority on this topic, a quick video saying, here's what I like. I am a expert blank with this experience, and this is what I loved about this book. These are my top three takeaways. So yes, that will help the author. It'll help prospective readers, but it'll also be a review that everyone else sees. And you still get to write some text with it. You don't just write, it's a review plus some text. So people are going to click through to check out more about you if you do a little quick video. So I think it's probably one of those underutilized features. I sometimes, for when I'm writing a review for my clients, I'll take a screenshot. If I haven't bought the book, if I have the ebook, I'll take a screenshot and I'll then circle digitally a section of a book that I was like, this is cool. And I'll attach that to my review because then my review sort of pops up and
Ah.
people are more likely to see it. And I tend for people I love, I write, 2 or 3 paragraph reviews in detail. So I want those to be seen. But
Good. Okay. I love that idea. I am a little bit of a reluctant showman on Instagram or TikTok or wherever I make videos. I like to show up, and then other times I'm like, oh my God, did I really just put that out there? So watch out, listeners. I'm not sure, but I think I'll try to do some video reviews because it's awkward. It always feels a little awkward.
well, I would just say that anyone listening, if you are moved or found great results or inspiration because of some content that someone created, a podcast like this one, a book, whatever it is, a post someone did, like taking the time to share what you valued about that and then give some context for why you valued it. It helps you. It may lead to a conversation with that person. It helps the content creator know they're not just creating content and throwing it into the ether and hoping someone sees it. You might inspire them to create different content based on your feedback. I mean, if you think someone is not reachable, like a Brene Brown, well, if you really made an effort to get to know that person and share what was resonating and you kept following up, I mean, I feel like you could reach anyone. That's the beauty of the world we live in right now. But if you simply consume and never respond, then that person never gets to really understand the value of what they're doing. I think you get to be part of that experience with them. It doesn't have to be a video. It just taking the time to write a thoughtful response, particularly if you're willing to do like a LinkedIn recommendation or a podcast review or book review. The reviews piece is really key because on Amazon, the bestseller ribbon is fleeting, sometimes as little as an hour, and then it's gone. And you can sell sometimes 12 books to get number one in a category. So it's not very important. But the reviews stay. So my last book has over 250 reviews and it hit number one in 18 categories across 3 countries. There's no real evidence of the number one categories piece, but the reviews are there. And so I see reviews as social proof on a book sales page. And that's why I focus on building relationships and using it as a reason to reconnect and engage with my existing network, my likely prospects and referral partners. And that's what I guide people to do. But you don't need a book to do that. If you're trying to reengage, wake up some kind of biz development, like this 80, here's my unscientific fact. 80% of the people you need to know to be successful, you've already met. So if we just mentally recognize that rather than networking to collect more business cards, that should only be like 20% of our energy. If we spent 80% of our energy re-engaging with the people we liked, here's the 2 questions paper to ask. Would they remember my name and would I be happy to hear from them? If the answer is yes to both questions, why not reach out? Right? If we'd be happy to hear from them, that means it's someone we enjoyed. And if they'd remember our name, like why not reach out? I don't care if it's 15 years ago, like make the effort. Reconnection is so powerful. So giving you the extra tip without you asking.
Yes, no, no, no. I love the extra tip, and I'm going to just punctuate it again because this is your other book, Wake Up Your Network. We're going to talk about this on the next podcast, but I'm going to just
SmallListBigResults.com goes to that book. That's the Small List Big Results, Launch a Successful Offer, no matter the size of your email list, is the name of the book, but the process in the book is called Wake Up Your Network.
We're going to put that in the show notes for everybody. So click on that. And then if we can remember your name and would be happy to hear from them, then you've won. Robbie, if you call me, I'm going to remember your name for sure. I'm happy to hear from you. I hope you would feel the same about me. It's been a pleasure having you on the All-Star Networking Show. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Paper. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for listening to the All-Star Networking Show with Cathy Paper. If you're interested in being a guest, please contact Cathy at www.rockpaperstar.com.